This was sent on Twitter using the hashtag CornyDriveThru from the one called CJ. It's an article about Tony Khan by Aidan Gibbons on Cultaholic. Tony Khan reveals how he has changed his AEW booking process since Full Gear. Have you been following whatever this is?
I didn't follow it. I didn't see the breadcrumb trail.
Apparently, he was just interviewed on WTF with Mark Maron, so he was a busy man out in Los Angeles, lots of meetings. He revealed that he changed the layout of his booking sheet, and it has allowed him to be more organized. Now, here's a quote. I had a process. I already had a schedule of what I had planned week to week in different stories with different matches and segments. At some point, I just inverted it. I realized I should tip this over. Instead of looking at the dates and building it out, I kind of flipped what the column was and what the rows were, and put the columns where the rows were, and now I organize everything like this since Full Gear, and now I feel like I'm more organized. Even though it's all the same information, it's just looking at it differently. It really helps. I was already doing that, and we just kind of had that, but I had it the other way, where it was looking at the shows, and I had where the columns were.
Please stop.
I'm not done yet. Don't you want to hear the complete thing?
Keep going then.
I had where the columns were, and out here were the wrestlers, the different wrestlers and stories. For some reason, and I don't know why, I can't even read this. It shouldn't make that big of a difference flipping it. The flow, working down the page, it works a lot better. And it works a lot better. And basically the same thing I was doing, I just flipped the page around and it helped me be even more organized. What are your thoughts on, Jim, on the process that Tony Khan has done to change his booking since Full Gear? Have you ever thought about changing your columns? Maybe you would have had more success at different points in your career if you had just gone from horizontal to vertical.
Downwards instead of crossways. I mean, at this point, is it kicking a puppy? He's obviously a good-hearted person. He's obviously very kind and charitable, and he really cares about people, and he genuinely thinks he's doing a good job, and he spent a lot of time in his room with his notebooks making columns. I did too. I used to book 14 match cards, and with all the top wrestlers in the business in dream matches, because they worked in different territories and they would never cross paths. And then I would type them up, and I would actually type them up on a piece of typing paper so I could cut it in strips and make it like a long newspaper ad, like the ad was with all the matches from top to bottom, from main event to opening match. I did all that when I was 12 because it was fun. But tens of millions of dollars were not being spent on real live people to do those things and to put those things on television. I mean, it's starting to be to the point where I feel bad for him every time he talks to people, because I start cringing thinking, what? You know, the boys. I mean, some of the modern wrestlers, maybe they think this is normal, but even the boys that have been around for a while, they've got to be thinking, what the fuck? This fucking guy, yeah, he's a nice guy, but this is the
But he's not the one to compete with WWE is what a lot of them walk away
No!
from. That's the sad truth.
The columns going down, and now I'm more organized. Your medication is what apparently is depending on whether you're organized or not, Tony. It's not the columns going down or up or whatever. It's the toy with Richard Pryor come to life. It's a real life Richie Rich movie where he's playing with real action figures, and the tens of millions of dollars are like When I used to lose $1,562 running Lenore, North Carolina. Oh, shucks. It was like, oh, we'll just, that guy's mad at the other guy and they had a fight in the locker room. Well, we can't have that. I'm going to send the guy home and pay him tens of millions of dollars or whatever the fuck. Multiple times. I don't know. I have no answer for what you just read, and I have no finish for this bit. I'm gobsmacked.
Well, forget about a bit. Looking at this objectively, can you see a situation where any booker, maybe not everyone's as organized as you, I mean, there's a reason Flair wanted you on that booking committee, where a change to the way you write down your formats could improve things? Like something like that could trigger something to...
Well, I mean, I've talked about that when you're writing television, especially without a staff of writers, a booker, I was always over-prepared with paperwork. But it was because the announcers needed to know this, and the technical crew needed to know this, and the wrestling talent needed to know this, and here's a list of pre-tapes, and here's where they go into the program so you can see what you're talking about. Has it already happened or is it yet to happen? Then you can't talk about shit like that. That's very complicated. I'm not saying it's not. But Tony just thinking that suddenly he's reached clarity in his booking because he, instead of writing things down top to bottom, he writes them out left to right or whatever. No, this is, and the way he expresses these things also is, I can see where a lot of the guys think, oh boy, this is the promised land. I can retire off of this motherfucker. He's just happy to be here and he's thrilled at all that. Let's pat him on the back and we'll all be farting through silk for the next 10 years. But can you imagine Vince McMahon again coming out and saying, I'm so thrilled. I've come up with a new way to organize my booking. I'm going to go up and down instead of side to side.
And again,
he's this is his hobby. He's playing. This has been his dream. He's playing with this. He's having a ball, pushing all these figures around on his little checkerboard there. That's all I can say.
That is one of the realities I think a lot of people don't want to see, is that whenever you think of WWE, it's run like a business. It may be run like a business where one shareholder is the only person that matters, but it's run like a business. If AEW makes money or not, it really doesn't matter, because it was going to be Tony Khan's project. It wasn't, I'm going to start a wrestling company and I want to run it seriously like a business and matter on a main stage, let alone compete. It was, I'm going to have a wrestling company so I could run it.
And I can spend my inheritance while my dad's still around to pat me on the back and enjoy seeing me doing it.
I don't know how much he's patting him and enjoying it. I mean, well, I don't know.
And I mentioned this to you earlier, and I'll bring it up again now. A lot of people on the internet were commenting about that Tony had announced or commented that they had grossed $100 million in revenue this year. And everybody immediately took that run. Well, see, they've made $100 million. No, and let's try to give people a little primer in business. You don't make $100 million if you gross $100 million. You gross $100 million, and whatever, you could make $98 million profit, or you could go in the hole depending on how much money you spent while you were grossing the $100 million. So we have not yet heard. And again, somebody's got, oh, Cornette now, they grossed $100 million. And he's bitching and complaining about it. I'm not. That's amazing. Truthfully and honestly, I don't know how the fuck they held it together to do that with all the fucking chaos. But it's not making $100 million. We don't know that he made any money because they were talking about operating at a loss because of the video game that apparently now would fucking shame the greatest vampires in Transylvania on amount of blood, and so they can't get it rated right or whatever. But again, they grossed $100 million, and you can also gross $100 million by spending $200 million. That's my fucking joke. I've been doing it for 10 years. What's the easiest way in wrestling to make $5 million. Start out with $10 million. So we don't know what's going on there, but when you just, I can't even imagine how to begin tallying up the money that Tony Khan is spending on talent that gets paid, even whether you ever see him or not. And we went over the fact that there's over 100 of them, male and female. The constant upgrades in television production.
Flying everyone all over the place.
Doing a thing while they're still on the same TV deal that they were on a couple years ago. And they're still drawing approximately the same gates that their TVs are down a little bit from where they were, but the pay-per-views do good. But it's not like there's been a massive jump. So the point is the money that he's spending, that, as I have said before and said to Kerry Silkin one time in Ring of Honor, if you didn't have these 6 guys with the fans set the seats on fire, Tony Khan could easily save 7 figures a year without the general public ever knowing that he had done it by just cutting some of the people on contract that you never see to begin with. So we don't know how much money he spent. He gave all these people multiple times more money than they'd ever seen before.
That's the other thing. He negotiated against himself, whether he realized it or not.
Yes, he negotiated up. He started out, I'll offer you this. Oh, well, shit. They would have taken half in some cases when they first got started. I talked to a few of the people. And then they said, well, let me give you more. So we'll see what the bottom line is whenever we find out whether they stay in business or not, or how long, whatever. But they didn't make $100 million. The WWE's profit on a gross of over $1 billion last year. Was it much more than $100 million?
I'm not sure. I'm actually going to see if I can quickly find. World Wrestling Entertainment's net profit fell 39.27% since last year, the same time period, to $38.8 million in quarter 4. So that's only for one quarter. So it's probably over $100 million. Yeah.
Yeah, they made 150 million in profit on over $1 billion in gross. So to make 100, and they run a bit of a tighter ship than Tony does. So to make $100 million, Tony would have had to gross over $1 billion. And I think we know that's not the case. So we'll see what happens.
Well, Jim, it wouldn't be.
I feel like old Farber on CNBC.
David Faber?
Him too.
All right, you seem more like a Carl Quintanilla kind of guy.
Well, that's only because I can say Quintanilla.
That still makes you so happy. Jim,